To shore, I want to bring in Cape Coral Mayor John Gunter, where the eye wall is about to hit. Can you tell us what you're seeing and feeling there, Mayor?
Yes, I was outside about an hour and a half ago. We had severe winds in, and it's only increasing, by the minute. Like you had mentioned, the eye wall is getting ready to hit landfall, and we'll be experiencing those severe winds. So we're monitoring this catastrophic storm very closely.
I don't know if you were able to see the pictures we shared a while ago here of Naples and the flooding right now. They're getting a significant storm surge up the streets there. Are you experiencing a flooding problem where you are?
Yes, we've seen over the last couple hours that increasing. We know that, we're in an area that we're expecting anywhere from 10 to 18 feet of storm surge. So that's very concerning, not only for the wind, but that is a very a concern that we have, because of life safety. And that's one thing that we are monitoring very closely.
The speed of this a little quicker than we may have anticipated, which is obviously some good news. Do you think you'll be able to start effecting rescues, perhaps even before the evening is out?
Well, what we're doing now is keeping an eye on the storm. Once these sustained winds get below 45 mile an hour, we will activate our public safety, our police and fire, who are basically stationed in place right now. And we're just weathering the storm like many other cities. We asked our residents to do the same thing, shelter in place, go to the interior of the home, stay away from windows. One of the concerns that we have is our evacuation shelters. We're only at about 10% capacity, so that's very concerning for us. So with the storm surge that we expect in later this evening, we are, monitoring it very closely because that is a big concern for us.
Do you have an idea where people who didn't evacuate are? Is there a registry, or is there a way you can reach out to them as soon as it's safe?
No, we do not have any type of registry. I do know that some of residents that I've talked to went over to the East Coast of Florida. So we're hoping that a majority of our residents, heeded our warnings to evacuate. We've been telling them that since yesterday and advising them to get out of the city because, we knew this was a catastrophic storm and they need to take it very seriously.
Do you have what you need, Mayor, for a recovery?
Well,
All right, testing 1, 2, 3.
We will get our action teams out there to do an assessment to see exactly the magnitude of the damage. We prepare and train for this event each and every year.
That must have been a little scary.
A Category 4 or 5 hurricane is something that's unprecedented. So we've reached out to some state and federal authorities already. So we're prepared and ready to go out and assess the situation, make sure we get our police and fire back out into the community to answer any priority calls that we may have or that are on hold as of right now.
All right, Mayor Gunter, thank you much. We're going to end our special report for now. We'll come back as news warrants for many stations in the East and Central time zones.
News is happening now. Look at what's making headlines around the world.
Right now on Morning News Now.
A lot of things happening right now. First, Florida's gonna get hit hard. Everyone is expecting the worst out of this hurricane. Mr. Ian, as they call him, or her. I don't mean to assume. However, the market also is going through a particularly interesting place. One that's not very good. First, I'll be quick to say that we need to get above and stay above this red line right here. This is very importante. Very important line. If we can at least get above there, then we can possibly expect to get stuck up here for a bit if we can reverse all the problems in the market. But if we reject right now, that'll be the fourth possibility. Rejection after hours doesn't technically count, but still counts. Again, rejection in the morning, another after hour but morning rejection, and today midday rejection.
No stress, no mess, just yum.
So based on what, oh, okay, we closed above. Oh, hold on. This line is way too thick right now. I should have left it. Okay, alright, so that's not bad. There is a high possibility that this is also a false location because we started a new candle above the line. Psychologically, they can be a good support, but only if we're doing like exaggerated bull markets. The same can be applied for bear markets. They're almost guaranteed to fail. So even though I just kind of created a new candle above, let me see what happens. 30 minutes. Let's do 30 minutes. Okay, 30 minute also opened up above. 5 minutes. See, 5 minutes on a downward trend. So no, this is not good. We are testing it on the 5 minute.
In just the last couple of hours, that storm surge filling up cities, the potentially deadly, record-shattering rainfall stalling across the southwest coast. The water is getting so high that first responders will not be able to help anyone who stayed behind. And just moments ago, Florida's governor warned it is only getting
I don't know. Sometimes I've been through plenty of hurricanes. I know that it's bad. I've seen trees fall. We've prepared for certain trees to fall also by tying them at a specific angle. So I get it, but sometimes like everyone makes this alarm about a hurricane or something, and people go to the store and just buy everything up. And then you see like stocks go up high, and what happens? Nothing happens. It was just a bunch of rain. Some places, of course. Other places are drenched. But I mean, if you're living anywhere near sea level or below, for that matter, that's something that you have to kind of expect. We hear a lot about climate change.
Not only today, but possibly over the next few days. That's the truly dangerous part. That's the part that we're worried about.
We're crawling
that's the part
away from
with the sewage. That's the part that they're worried about with low-lying areas and all the
369. We'll call it 369. I swear, sometimes I look at these numbers.
In the meantime, the wind and the rain is still picking up. Since I last spoke to you, I think it's picked up.
And the references of the locations and just the numbers within 420s, 369s, 69, whatever. People get so psychologically intertwined with money's numbers.
Nowhere near the brunt of the storm, nowhere near the eye of the storm, nowhere near where landfall is going to be made. We are a few miles north of that, but just in those outer bands,
and they show in the charts.
Now, this is expected to be devastating even in this area. Lester.
All right, Steve Patterson.
Also, another thing I noticed was looking at it from a much bigger perspective. Wait, not that one. That one.
With you, Carrie. What are they looking like right now?
Lester, the rain is melting, the wind is blowing, and I think
but on the daily, was it? Because, yeah. The
the
daily doesn't show us promising volume, first and foremost. It's a green day-ish, if you want to call it that, but the volume is nothing compared to all the negative days we've had as far as normality goes. So it just means that the Bears are taking a moment of rest and the Bulls took over, but that also means that the Bulls are hardly that strong on the two accounts. On first account that they barely moved the price, on the second account that they barely showed volume. So either the Bulls are not participating and they're afraid of the market, or the bears are really just that strong, that much more aggressive with their actions. I would say it's the first case. There's just not a lot of bulls right now. On an hourly, here's the daily, and it's gonna reverse anytime soon. High volume start, next hour slower, half the volume almost. Next reduced, next reduced. So the volume is going down in the green direction. The green movements are getting smaller and smaller, and it's about to reverse. And if it reverses, it's honestly going to reverse right on this line. This is exactly the moment of reversal. Look at the previous negatives, and then compare that to the green today. It's a breath of fresh air, but not really. Not really. So we gotta really watch what's gonna happen today to figure out what's gonna happen for the next month or two.
Who has the latest. And Bill, perhaps you can drill down on Punta Gorda, where Carrie is, and describe what you're seeing weather-wise.
Yeah, and hopefully Carrie, our good friend, is still listening. So Carrie's located right here. So here's Port Charlotte. He's in Punta Gorda, located right here. That's where the winds are blowing out. Carrie and all your crew, our NBC friends out there, you only have literally about 5 minutes before that northern eye wall is going to arrive on top of you. So right now, we could hear the winds howling behind you. Looked estimated, possibly 70, 80 miles per hour. Your winds are going to jump potentially up there to 100, 120 as we go through this northern eye in about 5 to 10 minutes from now. So I guess my advice to you and your crew is get to the safest spot you have. I know Carrie is such a veteran at doing all this. They know exactly where to go. Carrie, explain to everyone how safe you're being and how you know where to go.
Yeah. Are here because we're
Yeah, Lester
is built out of concrete. It allows us to get up off the ground like 2-3 stories if we need to, but most importantly, it gives us a structure that protects us from the winds, and then of course we can always retreat into our vehicles. Now, most of the parking garage is full because there's a lot of refugees, people who said, oh, I'm going to ride this storm out. Then they changed their minds and said, not with the storm surge that we're hearing that's going to be far more than 9 feet. And so they pulled in, made their way into the parking garage where we are, along with several other media organizations. And, well, I'm going to run and get to the car here. Bill, we're going to do this pretty quickly, so I'm going to cut out right now.
Yep.
Give you one.
Yeah, and we're starting to lose our...
And we're going to get into position because...
Yeah, we're starting to lose our shot there with Carrie as that northern eye is approaching his Punta Gorda location there. Again, that's right here. You see these bright red colors? Those are the thunderstorms with the northern eye that are about to move right over the top of him and our crew there. So we wish them the best as they head through the eye. And they should actually, in about an hour from right now, maybe 2 hours, be in the center of the eye. Carrie may actually be in the center with clear skies and sunshine. And obviously, if we can bring you those pictures safely, we will. But the first priority is to keep that whole entire crew safe. So why did we see the boats that were on the floor of the harbor? That's been the scene up the coast. Remember, all of these winds, even 60 miles per hour now at Tampa, so we're losing power once you get above about 50. That's blowing the wind out of all these bays and all the harbors. The wind on the south side is the wind that's blowing it inland. That's why we showed you with Allie in the Naples area, cars that have water on them, cars that were flooded. This is the highest water level ever measured in Naples from any storm in their recorded history. It looks like it peaked somewhere between 5 to 6 feet. So that's what 5 to 6 feet looks like. Obviously, for the people that own these vehicles and everything else and the houses that had the water in them, it's catastrophic for them. But just try to picture what double that is going to look like. And that's what's heading in the next couple hours for Fort Myers and for Cape Coral in those areas. When they go through, once the eye passes inland, this backside, this bright red, the strongest winds over the water, when that comes on shore, is when the water levels are going to rise.
I was trying to adjust that correctly.
So
be
right
a little
now,
bit more
the eye is finally arriving in areas like Fort
prepared.
Myers. So you've got the worst winds, and now you're starting to see pretty extreme wind damage. But the surge damage
This is
going going
looking
to trail
good.
that by a couple hours just to keep you abreast of how that's going to play out. We mentioned that the winds are expanding. Tampa with that 60-mile-per-hour wind. So that's why we're going to have power outages, not just where the eye makes landfall, but pretty widespread right up through the I-4 corridor. The hurricane hunters. So these brave men and women go and fly into these storms for us. And by all reports from the hurricane hunters, they've been saying that it's the most extreme they have ever been into an eye of any hurricane. They fly into all of them. They flew into Michael, they flew into Ida, they flew into Sandy, they flew into Katrina. One aircraft says that they dropped 1,000 feet. You ever been in an airplane and you have, all of a sudden the turbulence and you
There's that
drop
same
like
red
that?
line
They
right
dropped
there.
1,000 feet. Can you imagine what that would have felt like? So the
We're
stories we're
approaching
going to
it.
hear from this storm, the eye is just that intense, Lester. This is an unbelievably powerful storm that is going to change the
368.95.
lives of about 1 million people.
We're at
It's starting now,
369.20.
and it continues during the day today.
20
It's
cents
very
above
sad
that
that
line.
all of these people, hopefully have
Does not
evacuated,
seem promising.
and they're just waiting to see what it's going to be left. And we won't know. There's like a fog to war, I kind of call
Probably
this
at
after all
the
these
end
hurricanes.
of the...
We won't know tonight during the
Well,
overnight
we're in the
hours when it's
weekly
dark.
now.
It won't be till sun up tomorrow if we can get the
I
helicopters
mean, if
up
we're in the
for everyone to
weekly
finally,
and it
take
stays
a
up
look and
here,
see just how
honestly,
bad it
that
was.
would be a revelation.
Yeah, Bill,
That would
I'm cocking my head.
constitute
I thought I
a
heard thunder in the
higher
background
low.
from where we are right now.
Barely.
You said
Lester,
something
you
that
did.
fascinated me, and maybe I've heard it. Yeah,
Higher
Lester,
low.
that is thunder. Okay.
Lester, one of the things that's been amazing about this storm is the amount of lightning
June
in the eye.
17th.
So many people like yourself that are going to go through this, you will be hearing
Slightly
thunder in
higher,
this
like a couple
red
of
blob. The
pennies
next time you
higher.
come back to me, here's some of the lightning strikes. You can see them right here. So there was one strike right here by Venice. You're located a little further up here towards
Which
the north,
could
towards
mark
Bradenton,
a
but,
possible
we're
double
moving this around on you, but you see
bottom,
these
and it
lightning
could
strikes
go
here. So
back
yes,
up.
that is a threat with this storm.
So
along with
there are a
tornadoes,
lot of
Lester, when
reasons
you're
why
near
it
that
should
eye.
bounce
So
back.
we'll keep you abreast too of your position
If
to make sure you don't
it
get
is
caught in that eye
possible
wall
to bounce
also.
back.
All right, Bill, and my attention is obviously in
Gotta
that
first start with the
picture in
red
our
line.
lower corner.
That's why
but
we
I don't know
need
where
this
that's
red
coming
line.
from, but we see
If this red line can stay
fire in that particular
underneath
picture, and
our
remember
price,
power lines. That's coming out
then
of
I think
Naples
we'll be
right
fine.
now.
We'll rubber
What's
band
burning?
back up.
Looks like it perhaps could be a power line down. Obviously, one of the big dangers of being outside during anything like this is power lines snapping. Obviously, the hazard is apparent in those pictures, so we'll continue to watch that and perhaps gather more what we can. We'll be back with our special coverage here in Florida right after a short break.
The captions are gonna sometimes be really weird, so expect some silly things to pop up.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand, so we've created a newscast just for them. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Good morning. Welcome to today. I love mornings. They're full of possibility. And how you start your day sets the tone for the whole day.
Oh, the VIX volatility needs to cool
We feel
off,
like we're right there with you.
which would mean
Because every
very
day we
nice
start our morning
recovery
so
for
you can take on
an
yours.
upward movement. But even on that note, this day, whether it breaks out of this particular trend, flat,
What's making headlines around the world.
Right now on
that's a
Morning
pretty
News Now.
long-winded one.
We're coming on the air with breaking news.
If it breaks out,
This is a significant
then
moment.
that's gonna make the spine
Whenever it
dumb.
happens, wherever you are, NBC News, streaming free
So it
now.
needs to cool down, which would make SPY go up a little bit before it starts to
We're next to the
snap
subway
back up
station. The
again.
state's reservoirs are alarmingly low. War will pass them by.
News is happening now.
Look at
40
what's making
cents a
headlines
blow.
around the world.
We're coming on the air with breaking news.
This is
That's
a
good.
significant moment.
Whenever it happens, wherever
Oh, even
you
if we
are,
close above,
NBC News, streaming free
people can still
now.
judge that it was a
You
very
don't know
weak
when your
close
moment's
and then
coming,
start
but when
selling
it does,
further.
you take it.
Because this close would suck.
You get one beautiful life to live. What are you going to do?
We'd have to be far above it.
Having you as a positive force means really the world to me.
Jenna doesn't stop till it's sold.
At least a buck.
Okay? We have this circle of women that love each
To
other.
make a scratch.
I decided I'm going to go with the rhythm of life. And you love riding the wave. This is a moment we're in right now. This is really electric. Yeah, I love you too.
And it's not showing any signs of strength.
Top Story with Tom Llamas. Weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
We're back from Southwest Florida, where Hurricane Ian is expected to make landfall as a powerful Category 4 storm, perhaps within the hour or two. Take a look at this fire from a downed power line. Hundreds of thousands are without electricity in the region. We've been seeing in the past few hours astonishing Hurricane Ian's wind and rain pushing storm surge inland, the highest water level from a storm ever measured in places like Naples, Florida. It is utterly catastrophic, a word we have heard a lot of as the storm has taken aim on Florida. Teresa Heitman is the Naples, Florida mayor. Mayor Heitman, we've been showing this video of a small fire in the streets of Naples. Also, Naples, the flooding in the streets. What are you hearing from your responders?
I'm sorry, hearing from?
Oh, jeez.
From your first responders.
It's severe. It's severe. And if you're on the first floor, you need to go to the second floor. Obviously, you can't even get out. So, we tried to prepare everybody is to stay hunkered down. Receding waters, keep going up as much as you can. Do not go into an attic. Right now is the time to get through this surge that we're having, which about 5 feet of water or more right now. And we still have another hour of high tide.
Are you getting 911 calls related to this, and are you able to respond?
Lester, the streets are flooded in downtown Naples, and the fire engine couldn't get out if they wanted to.
Is this flooding and the intensity of the storm more than you were expecting?
Yes.
That's
but
not
I will
good.
tell you, the county is sending over skiffs so that we can try and get to people through the skiffs that the county will provide for us. But it is not. I don't think anyone would have expected this, even though we
Here's
said
the
9
test.
feet.
Are we strong enough to stay above this red line?
The surge is coming at us.
And we understand the surge will grow even after the
It's an hour closing candle.
So
We need to stay above it for another 13 minutes.
This is obviously a huge challenge. Is there a particular area of your community that you're most concerned about?
Everyone, and anyone in low
Oh,
ground,
shoot.
Lester, but we low-lying
People getting
areas
scared.
are obviously
Oh,
our
people
bay
getting
right now is
scared.
meeting the ocean. And,
Hold it.
The water's just
Hold it.
getting
Hold.
higher and higher.
Hold.
And the winds are picking up. So I can only say is just I just pray for our citizens and for the.
It's already out of the RSI is blown out. There's no selling power. Where is this coming from?
We're just the beginning of it.
Dude, no. That's not what we want right now. Well, still have 13 minutes. The 1 hour is way more important than the 5 minute. So we could stay down here for a candle, maybe 2, if the third one just explodes up.
In Florida along the coastline as Hurricane Ian strikes with such vengeance. And right now we are here in the city of Tampa, and I have to tell you, this is the strongest wind that we have experienced so far today. Unfortunately, the worst of this hurricane isn't expected to be felt in this area until around 9 o'clock tonight to midnight. That is bad news. Under cover of darkness, we could be seeing the worst that this storm has for this massive metropolitan area that millions of people call home. We do know that earlier today, the mayor of Tampa told people that if you have already left, do not come back. It is not safe to do so right now. And that even though Hurricane Ian churned south to make landfall, she made a point that is critical, and that is that this city is
I'm
not
sorry
out of the
for
woods
assuming.
yet. There are already
Wow,
reports of flooding in
that's cool.
low-lying areas. And we will be seeing tropical storm force winds here,
Ian.
70, 80 miles an hour. It
Ian?
will be a massive rain event
I know
here
an Ian.
over the next 48 hours.
Not an Indian caption. Oh my god.
I want to go to meteorologist Samara Theodore right now, who has an update on the position of the storm as it begins to make landfall.
Lester, we are now down to the final hour. We're starting to see that eye already encapsulate much of
5 minutes
Captiva
about to close.
Island right now, and Sanibel's going to start to experience that as well. So while things may be starting to calm down in Captiva, do not be deceived. We're going to see that ramp up pretty soon here as the eye continues to cross. I want to talk about Naples and Bonita Springs. We're really seeing strong surge pushing in, and
There
that's
it
going
is,
to
the
cause
close.
the waters to continue to rush and rise. And if we head farther north,
We're underneath,
up towards Sarasota
so we
and
cannot
Tampa,
stay
where
here.
we saw those
We
visuals,
cannot
you know,
stay
the
here.
rain is going to become a
If we want a
major
bull
issue for
market,
them. While we do
we
have
cannot
that
stay here
outflow,
for 10
with
minutes.
the northern part of the hurricane, we are looking at a slow
However down
3
we
to
go,
4
we have to come
miles
back
per
that
hour,
same
and
amount
because of that,
plus
we can
more
expect anywhere
to
from
get above the red. We
24
need to
plus
close
inches
today
of
red,
rain
green,
moving through the region. Right
above
now,
the red
Ian is
line,
still sitting at a category
which is
4 as
slightly
it makes
green.
landfall.
Green,
We're
it's
gonna
green.
have more coming up for now. Lester, back to you.
Let me see the daily again.
Samara, thank
We're
you.
still
We'll be
green
back
on the
with our
day.
special
Right
coverage
now,
of
we're
Florida
sitting
right
green.
after this short break.
But that's just a location of multiple indicators. Not only a support, but an actual pivot table. Second standard deviation, the highest chance of either ricochet back or
Tonight, I interview
not.
Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg about the ongoing delays.
Every time we
You
get
seem to
down
be
to
pointing the finger at the
no,
airlines.
that
They're
one, yeah,
pointing
that's
the finger
standard.
back. Mr. Secretary, when is this going to get better?
We don't normally go down to 2 until we're ricocheting back up. This one's a fall below 2, which can also mean very bad
A way
things.
to start your day. Lighten your load. Every single morning.
Oh god, why
The
commercials?
indictment of a former president, or perhaps candidate.
So loud. Can you just make the volume the same? Can we stop with this gimmick? Oh, we're just gonna blow the volume on the videos. Commercials. To 120. Yeah, we really do not need to be here.
NBC News, streaming free now.
The day's biggest political stories with trusted insight now and expert analysis now.
Tomorrow.
The politics behind the headlines. Meet the Press Now, streaming weekdays at 4 p.m. on NBC News Now.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Ukraine and Russia. Could you help me understand what's going on?
So to help make
Can
sense
you
of it all,
really
we've
help
created a newscast just for them. We hope
understand
your
what's
family
going on?
will
Do
watch
we
Night
as
News
adults
Kids Edition.
understand
You
what's
don't know
going
when
on?
Your moment's coming, but when it does, you take it.
Top story with Tom Yamas.
No kids.
Weeknights at 7.
We're
on
dealing with
NBC
human
News
beings.
Now.
We don't understand what's
Hallie
going on.
Jackson Now. Weekdays at 5 on NBC News
Oh
Now.
my god.
Hey,
There it
podcast
is.
fans.
It's not even gonna try and
Unlock our
fight
true
for it.
crime mysteries
It's not even gonna
Tuesday, 9
fight.
p.m. on Apple Podcasts.
It's not
You
even
get
gonna
early
fight.
access to originals, plus bonus content, and everything is ad-free. So head to Apple Podcasts now to subscribe.
This is a huge pivotal moment. I probably wouldn't be streaming if I wasn't.
We're back in Bradenton, Florida for our special coverage of Hurricane Ian. Signs of disaster spreading. We're looking at a dangerous mix of water and fire after the storm knocked out power in Naples. The storm surge is now sweeping through
it's
cities
fighting,
up
it's
and
fighting.
down the coast. Water too high for first responders and the winds too high. In fact, Naples mayor asking for prayers for that community. The wind is picking up too, but the worst is yet to come, with gusts intensifying later tonight. Right now, at speeds of about 155 miles an hour and only expected to get stronger. And you saw that those flames and that power line scenes we're seeing in Naples likely to be repeated in many other communities, all facing the same threat. from this storm. We want to go to storm chaser Simon Brewer now, who joins us on the phone from Placida, where the eye of the wall is about to hit. Simon, can you describe what you're seeing?
Yeah, we're currently in the inner eye wall of the hurricane, and we're getting winds well over 100 miles an hour, and houses are disintegrating around us. One house just lifted up and through the air, went over another house in front of us, and slammed into some other houses. Trees are going down around us. Palm trees are going down. At times, whiteout conditions because the rain is being blown around so much by the high winds, you just can't see anything.
So as far as you can tell, you're in the actual eye wall hitting right now.
Yes, we're in the inner eye wall. The pressure is rapidly dropping. We should be in the eye, and just pretty soon we should be in the eye.
Volume is so weak.
And where was that damage you were watching?
This is the equivalent of trying to swim
right in the middle of Placida.
another 100 feet before you drown. You just have a little bit more to get to air, but you're all so weak, and you just can barely move. Oh my god.
And then a house behind that house just flew through the air and across the road in front of us.
And now the water is pulling you
Are
down.
you in a situation that you can safely get out?
Yes. We have an escape route. We have 2 escape routes that we can safely get out. We're not worried about the surge.
And it's pulling.
In this area.
And it's heavy. And your lungs give out. Please. Please swim a little bit higher.
The surge will come into this area pretty hard.
Yeah, and that's an important note, the idea that the surge and the eye wall strike don't necessarily coincide.
Hour, right? Okay, so let's say if we close below in the hour, then the next hour should be kind of bad.
Depends on where you are in the storm. If you're more on the right side of the storm with respect to the motion, the storm surge will kind of come in a very steady fashion.
This would be an okay close. An hour, right? What was I looking at before?
The storm surge is going to be
oh, the 30-minute. The 30-minute. Well, on the hour, it's an okay close. 30-minute.
We're getting hit by some incredible winds.
Not as important, but it could drag it down for the next few candles, which would also drag the 1 hour down.
Coming over this area. So a lot of people might think they're going to be.
But right now on the 1 hour, we're sitting above our red line.
It's going to come in fast and furious in this
396, 369, that one. 369.
All right, Simon, with the situation in Placida right there, as the worst of the storm now begins to take hold on the Florida peninsula. We're again looking at that arcing power line down in Naples.
The day is good and it's okay. Well, the day is really nah, yeah, it's not okay. Move this. It's not good. I don't know where it was. Crap.
From the Gulf of Mexico into the heart of Naples. So we'll continue to watch that where we are here in Bradenton in a fairly safe, sheltered area. But around us, we can see the winds that have been kicking up, the effect of the winds. We've seen that water behind me kind of moving out, essentially being sucked out to sea, as we've seen in other places. So the effect staggered a little bit up and down the coast here. We'll continue to cover it. We'll have much more special coverage as Hurricane Ian comes
for the day. We need to close up above. The next few days will be an expanding downturn. We could get stuck. If we get stuck, yeah, here's what's going to happen.
You seem to be pointing the finger at the airlines. They're pointing the finger back. Mr. Secretary, when is this going to get better? Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand, so we've created a newscast just for them. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer. And I'm Savannah Sellers right now on Morning
So,
News Now. We're staying on top of the breaking situation in Ukraine. We are watching dangerous heat this week.
Yeah, so if we stay down here, we're in trouble of going down further and then getting stuck here. And this would be very bad for us. So ideally, we would like to just poke our heads just a little bit for tomorrow to continue playing with the upside, with a possibility to go back up. But if we go underneath, there's almost no possibility. There's still always a small possibility, but it would be so small. We want the blue line, the blue path.
There's an intense artillery battle underway.
We're getting out of this area right now because more air raid sirens are sounding.
As we look out over the latest city-turned-crime scene, we see the things left behind.
Was there a school officer on campus?
Basically,
We've been told. No.
we want the red line,
Just offer their thoughts and prayers.
And the House has answered
this
the call to
long,
create new gun laws.
strong
Stunning testimony at the
red
January
line.
6th hearing on Capitol Hill.
Americans face
We
the
want it
highest
to be
inflation
our
rate in
friend
decades.
Parts of Virginia cleaning
as a
up after
support,
severe storms.
A terrifying night of flash floods.
so it helps us go back up.
Thousands to evacuate. When do I play meteorologist?
But in order to get that chance, we need to be above it. And if we're gonna break down below it so quickly,
Results are coming in.
This Tuesday is
it's
going to be huge.
worrisome because it feels like the market could do it if it was planning a bull run.
Like an ideological fight to the death.
It does not seem to be planning
Ground on this issue?
a bull run. Bull run.
That's happening right now. Do you think this movement could have happened
What?
without social media?
A lot
What?
to talk about as we continue
I didn't
our
press
rolling
anything.
coverage.
We're coming on the air with the news. NBC
Okay.
scoop.
Bringing
Thanks
the news to
about
you
that.
is not only a job,
About
it's
that.
an honor.
What did I do? What? Okay, I don't know. Something happened.
This is an NBC News special report.
This could be a very severe hurricane.
Hurricane Ian hits.
This one historically is going to be way over the top.
Time to hunker down.
For the day, I do see a small, very non-important, but maybe important line that's kind of responding. This
And
one?
We are in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm Steve Patterson joining you on St. Pete's Pier. This is where the brunt of the
That's...
storm in this area
It just
is
bounced
coming in.
off nearly twice on that location.
Because of the wind picking up
This
now, it has been
is
solid
from
for
some
probably
very,
about the
very
last hour and a half or
previous
so.
channel.
The rain and wind blowing sideways. You see some people
Like
who are
this and
curious,
this?
obviously, about
Yeah,
what's
hold on.
happening here. We've seen tourists come in.
Oh,
We've
God.
seen residents that I would assume are now trapped, can't get out, trying to take a look at the bay. And the bay is incredible because of the tide. The tide now.
Where is this coming from? Hold on. Why is this here?
The tide sort of coming in and drifting out. It's being pushed back.
I don't even know what this is
toward
about.
the
This is
storm
not
itself,
something I've
towards the
drawn.
Gulf of
Was this an
Mexico. It's
accident?
actually
Never
almost
mind.
pushing the wind and hydro
Was that an
energy
accident?
towards it, and it will come back as
Was
high
that the
tide
thing I
comes
was
in.
looking at
That is
earlier? I
what
think it
federal,
was.
state, local officials
Okay,
are
never mind.
most worried about is
I
this
thought that was a
surge
channel
period
of
where you
something
have the
happening.
storm surge, you
But
have a
that's
deluge
probably
of
some sort of
rain because of
keyboard
how long
error.
is expected to settle here. This storm is expected to move at a snail's pace. We're talking somewhere around 2 to 3 to
Yep,
4
it's gone.
miles per hour.
Never mind. Nothing really happened there. It's the same. In fact, I was hopeful, and now I'm less hopeful.
Sit and stay here, dropping water for hours and hours.
I think we're bouncing down.
That's in danger for so many things. One, utility battle, already something that is very much of top of mind right now with the amount of wind. Wind damage, utilities, those power poles knocking over, not only knocking out power, but the possibility, as we saw in Naples, of causing fires, of causing more structural damage. And then on the back end of that, catastrophic flooding. If we have a storm surge that is above 5 feet, that is above 6 or 7 feet, that will lead to a very dangerous situation with the potential for so much rain in the forecast. That could cause a lot of damage, particularly because Tampa Bay,
That's
this
a
area,
lot of
built on
damage.
very low-lying areas. Tampa Bay is built up about billions of dollars along the storefront here, along the lake, the bayfront, and so much of that is on a low-lying area that it could mean that it's at risk for flooding. Even if the storm surge was something like 3 feet, it would still cause damage. But what we're predicting now, about 6 feet in this area, this, remember, was the bullseye not too long ago. Yesterday, as early as 24 hours ago, this was predicted to be the eye of the storm, making landfall here and not to the south of us. It doesn't matter. The damage is still being done. We can still feel the wind, the rain coming in solid.
Oh, this is not going to be a good
We're not really
week.
going to get the brunt of it until about 3, 4, 5 more hours from now, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock. is when the true brunt of this storm will make landfall in this area. And then the coinciding tail end of that is what federal officials, state officials, again, are so worried about, that catastrophic flooding which is possible in this area. We're keeping an eye out for it, but for now, the wind and the rain is enough. Back to you.
We're testing from the bottom
Steve
on
Patterson,
the red
thank
line
you.
at
And, like you,
369.
we have seen the water essentially move out behind me. There's a pier, what had been a floating pier, now grounded in the sand. We're covering Hurricane Ian. It's a Category 4 storm, as you've likely heard. The wind speed's about 155 miles an hour.
If we can test above this,
Hasn't made landfall
perfect.
officially yet. The
But
effects so far are shocking. The storm surge is coming
the
in
volume
fast,
doesn't
furious,
show
and
we are
police
doing
describe
so
official
good.
as a tsunami pushing inland, expected to get as high as 18 feet in some places. Signs of disaster around us, a dangerous mix of water and fire. We saw storm damage, power knocked out in Naples, and you see that fire, an apparent arcing power line. Thousands are already without electricity across many parts of this state. Also, many places, the water too high, the winds too strong.
Uh-oh, we got a little pop. Wow, wow, wow. Good, good, good. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't make me buy more puts. Don't make me buy more puts.
The worst, however, is yet to come.
Let me sell my puts and have a good time with the bull
The
run.
water, the surge will intensify a bit later on in the evening, even as the storm moves through. Let's go to Sam Brock right now. He's near Sarasota, Florida, with the latest from there. Sam?
We have built a good structure right here. Okay, nope, that's not it.
From Governor DeSantis here within the last 30 minutes or so, talking about the fact that we have someone in the neighborhood, obviously of 3 million people in Florida, who were issued evacuation orders. The good news here is he said most of those people did evacuate. The bad news, Lester, is that some people did not, and there are no options for them at this point. What the governor is recommending to all of those folks up and down, really the Florida Peninsula and the Southwest Spine, is for them to fill out forms online in the event they weren't able to make it to evacuation centers, so at least authorities, when they are able to go in and rescue people, know who's where in terms of their location, their home location, so it's been documented. But right now, all counties across the state of Florida, right, there's 67 of them, 11 which issued mandatory evacuation orders. None of them can act right now to actually help anyone until the storm passes. Those are the standing orders. Now, in terms of other resources the governor discussed in terms of buttressing what is going to be, of course, a likely days-long emergency operation, we're looking at 9 helicopters already here, he says, with another 20 plus on the way, a couple hundred boats for those swift water rescues that also will take place. That's coming courtesy of the DOD as well. FEMA with some 700 personnel already on the ground in disaster zones. So these are all the resources that are at hand. The problem, as you've been talking about all afternoon long, is that once you get to 45 miles an hour or higher for sustained winds, first responders are not in a position to act. And that's the situation that we're seeing playing out right now. I'm in Sarasota, about 15 minutes to an hour north from where this is expected to make landfall. As you look over my shoulder right now, there's still been bursts of wind gusts that have approximated 70, maybe 80 miles an hour, but for the most part, it's been more around that 45 to 50 mile an hour range. At one point, it was strong enough to actually shake the cars in the garage, which I'm currently situated in, to set off a car alarm. And we are expecting these conditions as the storm moves forward to affect us more deeply here. Of course, what you're seeing in Naples, in Fort Myers, that intense flooding is likely a result of the fact that they're in the southeastern portion where the eye wall is right now. But it's possible that we could be seeing very similar conditions here in just a matter of hours. Now, as far as hospitals go, I spoke with the CEO of Sarasota Memorial Health earlier today. And you just think about Florida and the demographic that serves here. A lot of older folks and families who are no doubt concerned about loved ones here. What I was told is they did not do any preemptive evacuations, but they have a pretty large footprint. They have about 4 or 5 buildings between regular hospitals and standing ERs. Some of them are brand new. They've been built in the last 6 months. Some of them were built decades ago and are in no position to handle a Category 4 or almost borderline Category 5 storm. I am told that an ICU unit was moved already to other buildings as well as a behavioral health department. So you can see the urgency right now that's being taken across the board. Lester?
Yeah, officials trying to adapt to not just the forecast, but what they can see with their own eyes. Thanks, Sam. Ryan Lamb is the Emergency Management Director for Cape Coral, Florida. Ryan, As we noted, emergency services have been suspended because of the high winds. So what happens for people who call for help right now?
So right now, when someone calls 911, we are logging those calls for police, fire, and ambulance service, and we're going to get back out to them as quick as we can once the sustained winds drop below 45 miles per hour.
Yeah, all your planning for this moment, and certainly over the last several days, at this point, do you feel like you are just spectators waiting for this thing to move past so you can act?
Yeah, so we have a plan in place so that as soon as those winds do drop, we can go back out with front end loaders and clear the roadways and get our police, fire, and ambulances back out there. However, right now, we are getting reports across our community from folks working here in our EOC of damage to their property. We are getting reports of significant roof damage around our area and catastrophic damage to some structures, including I was just informed that we have some damage here to our EOC that I need to go tend to here shortly.
Are you seeing any of the effects of the storm surge that we've all been warned about?
We've lost some of our cameras in the south part of our city that we would see those storm surge. We saw the initial push based on the counterclockwise rotation. We are waiting to see once the storm passes us to get that counterclockwise rotation that would give us the push back inshore. So we're not seeing the worst of it quite yet. That's still yet to come. So we're waiting with bated breath. And right now we are dealing with the eye wall. We've felt the pressure drop, and we're dealing with what appears to be some catastrophic damage around our city to our structures.
We know the population goes up and down here in this part of Florida. Roughly how many people are in your city at this time of year?
210,000 individuals. Based on the evacuations, we asked for the evacuation of 165,000 of those individuals. Unfortunately, we had a low uptick in the number of people that actually went to our shelters and evacuated. So we're very concerned about the life safety threat in our community. So as soon as those winds go down, our number one priority will be going out there and trying to save lives.
And is your power on there?
We're on generator power here. Most of our city, I believe, has lost power. And so that's going to be a sustained operation for trying to get power back to critical infrastructure. Right now, we're holding with our water system, sewer system, being able to still have that for the time being. But we're continuing to work to try to hold where we're at right now. We're getting reports of folks in structures that have either, as I said, parts of the roof are missing, windows and doors blown out, and they're having to shelter in place until the winds can reduce to the point that emergency services can come. But our promise is that as soon as those winds do drop, we are coming back out in full force as quickly as we can.
All right, Mr. Lamb, we know you've got a lot to tend to. Thank you for taking a few minutes for us. We do appreciate it. I want to go now to Charlie Justice, County Commissioner of Pinellas County. Mr. Justice, what are conditions like? What is of most concern to you right now?
Right now, we're seeing gusts in the 40, 50 miles. We expect to see gusts anywhere from 70 all the way up to 100-mile-an-hour gusts throughout the evening. We'll be having inches of rain, anywhere 6, 7, 8, 10 inches of rain in certain areas. And we have had so much rain before the storm that our ground is saturated. So you add that rain, you add that wind. We're worried about uprooted trees, down power lines. And really, we want to keep people off the streets. We want them to shelter in place. We don't want them out there exploring and possibly coming into some really dangerous situations.
Are you getting any early damage reports?
I haven't seen anything yet. Again, our gusts have not been anything like what they're seeing south of us. Again, 30, 40 miles an hour gusts. Right now, the wind is pushing the water out of the bay. So our concerns about storm surge that we had 24, 48 hours ago, not anywhere near that right now. We're worried about that more on the back end of the storm. But again, we're so saturated. We're getting so much rain. That's when we have uprooted trees.
It's not looking good.
Down, those kind of
It's
things.
getting
That's
the
really
night right on
concern
it.
right now.
The last possible
All right,
try, I
Commissioner, we'll
think.
let you get back to it. Thanks for
It's
checking
not
in with
a
us.
head
Go back to Morgan Chesky.
and
He's
shoulder,
near Tampa,
which is
where we
nice.
continue to watch the situation
A
develop
head and
there.
shoulder would have been way worse.
Yeah, Lester, we're keeping a close eye on these deteriorating conditions here. We're 2 miles off the water of Tampa Bay, and the wind and the rain, it it's really just an uncomfortable feeling to see every band just get stronger. And we know that the worst of this storm isn't expected to hit this metropolitan area, Lester, until about 9 o'clock to midnight tonight. That is when we could very well be seeing, even though we're not taking a direct hit, hurricane force winds or tropical storm force winds 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, more than enough to cause damage here. The mayor earlier today sharing that people should anticipate a potential loss of power, flooding in low-lying areas, and that is not just with this storm tonight, but over the next 48 hours, which could bring anywhere from 12 to 24 inches of rain. In fact, already today, the city sharing that there are already reports of flooding in low-lying areas, certainly nothing like we're seeing in the city of Naples, where entire streets are underwater, but to be 7, 8, 9 hours away from feeling the brunt of this storm, it's absolutely concerning to know that there are already parts here that are starting to flood. I mentioned it earlier. I want to mention it again, though, Lester. It's a very eerie sight on the edge of Tampa Bay. We've seen multiple photos of the water there that's been pulled away from the shoreline back towards the Gulf. The city acknowledging that, saying that essentially what goes out has to come back in. And while we certainly won't be seeing the level of storm surge that you might be seeing, or that other parts down along the southern Florida coast you'll be seeing, it could still be a problem here. You couple that with the flooding, the rain, and not to mention still some significant wind here, and we're in for a long night ahead here in Tampa. Lester?
It's nice to hear.
Morgan, thank you. Let me go to Ali Velshi in Naples, where some of the most dramatic pictures so far have been coming from with that storm surge occurring around those condominiums behind us. Ali?
Yeah, let me tell you, I want to, Randy, be careful as you do it this time, because the wind has really picked up. We are now right about at high tide. We're about 5 minutes away from high tide here in Naples. We also have winds reported, gusts up to about 112 miles an hour, so it's gotten a bit more serious. But the underlying issue is still the same, and that is that there's no delineation anymore between the Gulf of Mexico and Naples. This was a motorway, a parking lot. Earlier, I showed this to you. Lester, there were cars on the left and cars on the right. Now there's just cars pushed back and on the middle. As that surge pushes in, as Randy's showing you, the cars are being pushed further and further into the street, and we're seeing much more debris now. We're seeing much more happening. We're now at probably 5 feet, I would estimate, of surge. We were looking at 4 to 6. Take a look at that white car over there, Randy, on the left. Now almost entirely submerged. There were several cars around it. We're now looking at possibly 8 feet of surge here in Naples, and we're not at the worst of it yet. So there have been warnings about shelter in place. Do not attempt to move. Bill Cairns always reminds us your car can start to float away in 6 inches of water. We're now in about 5 feet of water. But what you're seeing here is the actual surge that you and I talk about so much when we cover these hurricanes. This is actually the Gulf of Mexico surging water into Naples and the surrounding areas. Lester?
Ali, thank you. Let me go to meteorologist Bill Cairns and pick up on what we're seeing here. Bill, as Ali mentioned, this is not the worst. This is bad, but there's more coming. Explain how it works from the time between the landfall and the time we really begin to see the bulk of the surge.
Yeah, we're seeing what was, the fringe of the eye surge. So that was the Naples area. That's down here. So you can see how far away Naples is from the center. And by the way, they did have 112-mile-per-hour wind gusts just north of Naples, just south of Bonita Springs here at a resort. And you can see the eye. See this black line? That's the past history of it. And these things wobble. I mean, it's not like going down a straight road. And you can see how it's been wobbling on shore here. But the general motion is to the northeast. It looks like the center of the eye is about to cross over the island areas north of Captiva here. And it's entering into Charlotte Bay. You can see that Charlotte Harbor here located just south of Boca Grande. So we're going to get that official landfall over the islands. Then it's going to go over the harbor, and then it's going to be in here somewhere around Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte. And I know we have Gary Sanders there and his crew going through the northern eye wall right now. And on the map, you see all these little dots. These are lightning strikes. I mean, there is active lightning. I mean, not only do you hear the wind whipping like a train, but you're going to hear claps of thunder too with this. This is an unusual amount of very violent air around that eye. So Lester was asking, when is the worst of the storm surge? As it makes landfall, The strongest winds with this storm are over water, less friction, and the stronger. You can see how bright these red bands are on the backside, especially the south. When this part right here where my hand is, when that comes on shore, that is where we have that potential for that 12 to 18-foot surge, because that is going to be the strongest winds, possibly up to 140, 150 mile per hour gusts. So yes, we're going to get the catastrophic wind damage with that too, but that's going to push the most water. And I think with this landfall going now almost right over the top of Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte, unfortunately for our friends in Cape Coral, Sanibel, Captiva, and in Fort Myers, that is going to pile up the higher surge right over you. I don't see how you're going to avoid that. With the storm making landfall right over the top of Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda, maybe you won't get the extreme surge. It may just be just south to you. That's to be determined, obviously, in the next couple hours. We'll figure all of that out. As we've been saying all afternoon, it really doesn't matter if it's a large, strong as it can be, Category 4 like this is, or a low in Category 5. And by the way, they take these storms and reanalyze them months afterwards, and it always could be post-storm upgraded to a Category 5 if they see that that's the kind of damage that would end. The reason we know the strength of these storms is because the hurricane hunters go in and fly around, but obviously they can't sample the entire storm. And then tonight, the storm makes landfall. By 8 p.m., it should be parallel to Sarasota north of Port Charlotte. So we're not, this isn't the crawl we were afraid of a couple days ago. It'll begin to move inland, and then overnight hours heading up here towards the Orlando area, and then eventually coming back off the coast as we go throughout tomorrow evening by Daytona Beach. But again, this is not the extreme damage. This will be tree damage, power outages, a little bit of storm surge problems by the St. Johns River heading up to Jacksonville, 4 to 6 foot of storm surge. We will get some flooding issues from that tomorrow, but the extreme catastrophic damage, the areas that people are not going to have homes possibly to come back to live in, that's what's happening right now with these winds up to 130, 140 mile per hour gusts, and then that storm surge behind it. Lester, we've been talking so much about the immediate threats to life that we haven't talked a lot about the potential for the rain. Well, we'll talk more about that later on tonight and then overnight and all day tomorrow, because that's going to be life-threatening. But that's not happening yet. That's tonight into tomorrow.
All right, Bill Cairns, thank you for walking us through all that. I want to go to Fort Myers Mayor Kevin Anderson, where there are serious concerns over the storm surge. Mayor, I don't know if you heard Bill Cairns, but he doesn't paint a good picture for what's coming your way in terms of water. What reports are you getting already? We lost the mayor, unfortunately. We'll try to get back to him to find out what's going on in the Fort Myers area. But we'll go back to Sam Brock right now in the Sarasota area. Sam?
It's such a contrast, Lester, to see what's going on in Fort Myers. We are only about 80 miles away from that here in Sarasota, and yet the streets right now don't have the storm surge that you're seeing, these incredible images on television, and yet that very well could be the case within a couple of hours. But what we know in terms of projections, Lester, 6 to 10 feet, that's the storm surge protection here in Sarasota County, a population of about 430,000 or so people, many of them living right by the water. It's hard to tell from this current position where I'm standing. We're inside of a parking garage so that we're insulated from what's going on around us. But over my shoulder, there's a downtown, really kind of just right around the bend there, and a bay, the Sarasota Bay, a barrier island. On the other side of the island is the Gulf of Mexico. So you have so much land in these just gorgeous, sprawling communities in Southwest Florida that part of their appeal is because they're on the water or incredible proximity to the water, but they are not suited for being able to handle storm surge on that level. And when you talk about 6 to 10 feet, certainly there's higher projections out there. Port Charlotte, I believe Bill said, was somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 18. But even 10 feet is 1.5 of me, basically. I'm 6'5". So people are going to be potentially encountering a situation where cars are being swallowed up, as you're already seeing in Naples and Fort Myers, and seeing the water coming all the way up to their doorstep or into their homes, which gets you to the point here that we've been preaching from the very beginning, and officials were wondering why not everyone was heeding this, to get out of town. You have 11 counties in the state of Florida, about 1 out of every 6 that issued mandatory evacuations. There are about 170, 180 shelters all over Florida. They are not an option anymore, Lester. So they're closed down. We know that here in Sarasota, there's about 2,500 people in a shelter as of this morning, several hundred pets. But when you talk to the folks who are around here, I was in Gulfport, Pinellas County yesterday. A lot of them were older. They had real reservations about going inside of a shelter. They weren't sure if they were going to have access to medications, what their friends were doing, if they'd be able to talk to their family members, dietary restrictions. And here we are now, and it's not clear whether or not all those people were able to get out. And the most important aspect of all of this is that no matter what county you're in Florida right now, even with all the resources in the world, they cannot go in to save you in these storm conditions. They're not going to do it until it subsides, whether that is by air or by water. And certainly many people are going to find themselves in that kind of situation. But as you were reporting, true in Bradenton, also true in Sarasota. Once you get to 45 miles or more, the Sarasota Sheriff's Department says, that's it, we've reached the cutoff point. As you look over my shoulder, again, it's still gusting. You're having plenty of rain here, but it's not the ferocious winds that we are expecting just yet. But again, that has to do with the trajectory of Hurricane Ian. We are waiting to see how this is going to play out and whether or not this is one of those communities where it looks one way today and completely different 48 hours from now, because that has happened before, certainly with hurricanes of this level and strength. We know that historically in Florida, you've seen a couple of Cat 5s in recent years, and by in recent years, I mean in recent decades. In 2018, there was Michael. That did almost $30 billion worth of damage and killed 50 or more people. And then you got to go back to 1992 Hurricane Andrew, which devastated South Florida. It was never the same after that. They had to put a racetrack in Homestead, Lester, to be able to revitalize the area. It was so financially destitute after Hurricane Andrew. And those are always the concerns that you have, loss of life and what it's going to mean for what we know of Sarasota, Port Charlotte, or any of these communities that hug the coastline that are so beautiful, so picturesque, so charming, and yet their entire topography and their appeal, their fabric, their culture could all change as this week progresses. Of course, power outages, another thing I should add that we're watching very closely. Governor DeSantis in a briefing about 30, 40 minutes ago said that we're looking right now at a couple 100,000 customers without power. In his words, that is a drop in the bucket. The expectation is there will be millions of people with no power, which of course gets you into issues of just life and safety and being able to access appliances that are necessary. Telecommunications, also an issue. Governor DeSantis saying that he was going to be bringing in somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 transportable towers so that people who have their telecommunication access knocked off can get it back, hopefully in time. But these are some hairy next 48 hours, and we're standing by to see what we're going to find out next, Lester.
Yeah, Sam, you talk about shelters. I was in a shelter a few hours ago, and the officials there were frankly concerned that they didn't have more people. They had people, certainly, who were there. Many were kind of forming a sense of community, serving others food. We saw a service animal, but officials said, look, we've got plenty more room, and people just aren't coming, and that's a real worry, especially as we're at this point right now with this storm becoming more dangerous by the minute. Morgan Chesky is near Tampa for us. Morgan, I wonder if there was some effect of those reports earlier in the week that Tampa was going to be bullseye and then it moved, if that might have in some way affected people's decisions as to whether to stay or go.
Lester, I certainly think so. And in fact, it was basically acknowledged by the mayor of Tampa earlier today when she reiterated the fact that if you have already left Tampa, if you've evacuated, because there was a significant period of time where this city was bracing for a direct hit. And she was telling those people if they already left, do not come back at this point, because it's so important just to stress how massive this storm is. And it doesn't matter necessarily as much as it matters where it makes direct landfall. This city, home to more than 2 million people, could be seeing hurricane force winds by nightfall tonight and 2 feet of rain over the next 48 hours. That is enough to cause record amount of damage here, and that is why there is a significant amount of concern going forward that we are just beginning to see the start of what really will become a slow motion disaster here. Lester?
All right, Morgan, thank you. We are going to end our special report for now. We'll come back on the air as news events warrant for some of our stations in the Mountain and Western time zones. Our coverage continues with NBC News Daily after the break.
NBC News, streaming free now.
Top Story with Tom Llamas, weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
From Brooklyn, we're next to the subway station. The state's reservoirs are alarmingly low. War will pass them by.
You get one beautiful life to live. What are you going to do?
This show is so fun, but having you as a positive force means really the world.
Jenna doesn't stop till it's sold, okay?
We have this circle of women that love each other.
I decided I'm going to go with the rhythm of life.
And you love riding the wave.
This is a moment we're in right now. This is really electric.
Yeah, I love you too.
Our show is about sparking conversations around today's biggest issues. The Fed raises interest rates. That controls inflation. Explain how that works. Is part of this that everyone's rethinking their jobs and their relationship to their employers? Can you just remind us why there are 9 justices on the Supreme Court instead of 3 or 20 or 2? It's not my job to tell you what to think. My job is to think about what you tell me.
Now Tonight with Joshua Johnson, streaming weeknights at 8 on NBC News Now.
NBC News, streaming free now.
Hey, podcast fans, ready to unlock our true crime mysteries? Try Dateline Premium on Apple Podcasts. You'll get early access to originals, plus bonus content, and everything is ad-free. So head to Apple Podcasts now to subscribe.
Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers right now on Morning News Now.
We're staying on top of the breaking situation in Ukraine.
We are watching dangerous heat this week. Recession, I mean, is that where we're headed? Is there any way to avoid that?
Morning News Now, streaming weekdays at 7.
Mr. Secretary, when is this going to get better?
You came into this job saying you were to fight crime. Have you been successful?
Found a way to put that. Can you update us on the status of negotiations?
Internal Affairs, the new podcast from Dateline. Listen now.
News is happening now. Look at what's making headlines around the world. Whenever it happens, wherever you are, it's here now.
Good day, everyone. I'm Kate Snow.
And I'm Aaron Gilchrist. We're coming on the air with breaking news about Hurricane Ian.
The Category 4 storm has not technically made landfall in southwest Florida yet, but it is already a major disaster there. The storm surge already starting to affect some areas. You're seeing Naples on the right side of your screen, I believe. The water rising there, sweeping away cars, debris in the water there. This storm surge could get catastrophic if it reaches predictions of as high as 18 feet.
Yeah, now this hurricane has already knocked out power to hundreds of thousands of people. That is expected to grow to millions without electricity across the state of Florida before this is all over.
And officials are being very frank, telling people who stayed behind that no one is coming to save them right now. It is simply too dangerous for first responders to get out there right now.
Let's turn to Kerry Sanders. He's in in Florida for us, in Punta Gorda, Florida. Kerry, you've been getting some of the worst of this so far. Bring us up to speed on what you're dealing with there.
We're getting hammered right now. These are some of the strongest winds that we've seen from this hurricane so far, at times blowing down this direction to the point that I've had to take a knee because it's so strong. Interestingly, there is still power here. Whoa, there we go. That's the kind of wind gust I'm talking about there. We've seen some down tree limbs. I was going to say, interestingly, there is still power in this area, but those gusts are particularly strong. Just a short distance from here, I mean, just 2 blocks is where Charlotte Harbor and the Peace River meet, and all the water was sucked out because the counterclockwise rotation of the hurricane was pulling the water south. It was, quite frankly, something I'd never seen, really quite remarkable. Boats just sitting on the bottom of their... I'm going to take a knee here because the wind's picking up, guys. There we go. See that? That's the kind of wind of a hurricane, really. Whoa. All right. So you're probably wondering, how am I here and the camera is so steady? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move myself closer here because I'm going to show you our camera has a position which is behind a building. If I can push my way through here, and then when I get behind a building, you can see as I get behind the building here and just sort of catch my breath here, all protected. So the buildings are holding. We've seen some rooftops sort of like dangling and shaking, but we haven't seen anything pulled off. But we got a long way to go with this one, guys.
Hey, Carrie, it's Kate with you now. Talk about the storm surge they expect there. Because you're right, as you just said, you're right by that harbor, right by that bay. What are they expecting?
Yeah, so the storm surge initially was, see, it's a good thing I moved. The storm surge was going to be maybe 12 feet. They upped it potentially here up to Inglewood to maybe 17 feet. It's the reason why folks decided that we're in evacuation areas that didn't evacuate, in the red zones and the orange zones. It's why they decided, I'm going to sort of show you here. Hang on a second, if I can. Sort of down this way. I'm not sure we can really do it because of the, you can see there's a couple other people out here. There's a parking garage down this way, and that parking garage is where a lot of, I guess I'll call them refugees, people in their 60s, 70s, 80s years old who didn't want to go anywhere, and then at the last minute decided they put the dogs in the car, the cats in the car. They made their way up into the parking garage for some protection. So, you know, I've got this giant wall right here. This is part of a 3 or 4 story building, so it protects me. But, you know, take a look at the stop sign right there. That kind of shows almost as much as me standing out there of what's going on. When you see that, let's listen just for a moment, okay? I want you to hear what a storm sounds like as well. I'm gonna walk over here with the microphone and just sort of hold it out for a second. Okay, here we go, let's listen. And there are people right now who are inside their homes with the shutters down. They don't know what's going on outside. They hear things maybe hitting the house. They hear that eerie sound. It can be really quite disturbing, but you're seeing what maybe they're not unless they still have power and they're getting the pictures that we're sending to you right now, Kate.
And Carrie, we know you're doing this in the safest way possible in that area. I want to ask you to stay with us as we fold meteorologist Bill Cairns into the conversation here. Bill, you've been watching along as well of what's going on there in Punta Gorda, and as we look at the map behind you there, you know, this is an area that's sort of shielded north of Fort Myers, but still already seeing these strong winds and these bands of heavy rain, right?
Carrie is in the eye. I mean, it's amazing that you saw a car driving up high in the background. Yeah. You saw some people on the sidewalk next to him, and oh well. But yes, they are in the northeast eye right now. Still lightning strikes. This is where Carrie is located. See the bright red on there? Those are the thunderstorms that we're watching right over. They're about halfway through the northeast eye wall, so they still have about another 5 to 10 miles of progress of the storm to go. That's literally going to take about another hour before Carrie and his crew get into the clear eye. And Captiva has been in the eye of the storm now for a while. They are in the center of the storm. We're very close to getting that official landfall designation. There's a little bit of barrier islands here, pretty unpopulated just north of Captiva, south of Boca Grande, and then we get into Charlotte Harbor. So if we don't get the official landfall when across these barrier islands, we may have to wait till it gets all the way over here, almost over the top of where Carrie is located. And remember, the worst of the storm surge is south of that. And if Carrie can still hear me, I don't know if he can or not, this is going to be a very different storm for Carrie and his crews than other ones. A lot of hurricanes we've had lately didn't have a strong backsides to them. The winds on the backside of the storm will probably be stronger than what you're seeing with Carrie and his crew right now. Right now, it looks like they're estimated, I'd say, anywhere between 80 to possibly up to 90-mile-per-hour gusts on the backside of the storm. After the eye passes, it's going to be clear, it's going to be pretty calm, and then when the winds come in from the backside, that's when we could see 120 to 130-mile-per-hour gusts.
Some of the strongest winds we've felt so far from the hurricane. I'm taking a knee here because, quite frankly, if I stand up, I think I'll get toppled over.
Yeah, you could easily see some debris flying back and behind you. So far so good with some of those roof structures and some of those trees in the background there. But yeah, I'd say they're getting close up there, probably to almost Category 2 gusts where Carrie is located right there now. But Carrie will be in the center of this storm and in the eye, probably from about, I'd say roughly 3:30 East Coast time maybe till about 6:30. The eye's 30 miles wide. If it's only traveling at 9 miles per hour, you got like 3 hours in the eye of the storm, and then you're going to get the winds roaring back from the opposite direction after it passes by. And that's what we're going to be experiencing. A little wider view, yeah, there's confirmation where Carrie is located. 93-mile-per-hour gust was just reported. So if you're wondering what a 90-mile-per-hour wind gust looks like, you probably just witnessed it live on TV. And even to the north now, that northern eye wall is all the way up here to Venice. So anywhere from Inglewood to Venice, that's where you're going to have a lot of Category 1, Category 2 wind damage. The south side, we've lost our wind sensors from the Naples to Fort Myers area with the high winds. This is in the backside, is when that comes through, that's when the storm surge is going to be peaking. So we expect the storm surge to peak close to high tide in the Fort Myers area, right around about maybe 5 p.m. to about 9 p.m. this evening in that region. And then we're going to take the storm inland. And once it finally crosses over land and gets to about where Carrie's located in Punta Gorda, that's when the weakening will begin. The friction of the land and the trees and the buildings will begin to slowly weaken the storm, but very slowly. You know, guys, you know, we only can show you so many, you know, dramatic images and pictures. I'm sure we're not showing you the worst, but we have to keep our crew safe at the same time also. Trust me, there's a lot worse out there happening right now than what you're just listening, what we can show you.
Hey, Carrie, can you still hear us? Give me a thumbs up, Carrie.
Ready for you.
I'm not sure if Carrie can hear us anymore. Bill, let me go back to you then and just...
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, you got me.
Is
Okay.
that Kate?
Yeah, that's Kate. It's Kate Marin, so we're just going back and forth. I'm wondering about those people that we just saw behind you. Are there still a lot of people around?
Well, a lot of them are storm chasers.
Okay.
They're mostly storm chasers. All guys, all between 20 and 25 years old. Most of them with YouTube channels.
Gotcha.
And they say they've chased tornadoes. For some of them, they tell me this is the first time they've ever been to a hurricane. You know, I heard Bill talk about lightning. We had a lightning strike here that caused everybody to move. It was so bright and so loud, and I suspect we will see more of that. You know, again, where I'm standing, I've got a little bit of a protection. So if I just take a few steps back, you can see how much stronger this wind is by, well, there we go. See, it's weird. Now there's no wind, and then I take a little bit further out. Really not that bad. I'm just going to move in, you know.
Yeah,
I think you got the idea of what the strength of the wind is. There's no reason to stand there and try to make my way. Hang on a second. There we go.
And Carrie, you make
way back here.
You make a good point
area.
about how these sorts of storms can change up at the turn, you know, on the drop of a dime. You have different conditions, which emphasizes what makes them so dangerous for people who perhaps didn't evacuate in areas where they should have evacuated.
You know, one of the things that you're looking at, you know, can be very confusing because you see me out here, and even though I've covered, you know, almost 40 years of hurricanes, it's just experience. There's no real, like, this is the way to cover a hurricane. I've got a helmet on, I've got some eye protection. So there are some people say, so why would I not do what Carrie's doing and go out and walk around in the hurricane? We do our very best to try to use the protection of buildings to get into a parking garage, to use these just moments where we're out there to demonstrate. At the end of the day, the folks who might want to step out of their house when the eye passes over, because remember, the eye comes, it's super calm. That can be deceptive because you think you're outdoors and everything is calm, and the next thing you know, the other side of the eye wall is hitting you. And as you know, Bill has been explaining throughout here, the strongest winds are right there on that eye wall. Bill, you know, what is the latest data? I'd heard a gust up to 195 miles an hour. Is that correct, or do we wait to get that data a little bit later as the storm is finally down to a Category 1 and a little bit later? Do we know what the top speed is right now?
Carrie, the airport closest to you there in Punta Gorda just had a 93-mile-per-hour wind gust. That was the highest that we had. And as far as we can tell now, the anemometer, the gauge that measures the wind, is still functioning. So that's a confirmed 93-mile-per-hour gust where you were located. And Carrie, I don't know if you could hear me earlier when I was talking. I have a funny feeling, and it's not funny, but the backside for you may be stronger than the front side, what you're going through now. And I know we've done a lot of these storms in the past, like Irma and a couple other ones with you, where the backside really didn't have a lot to it. That's not this storm. This storm has a very ferocious backside, and when you go through that tonight from about 6:30 to about 9:30, you may have winds stronger than now. Plus, it'll also be dark, which will make it a lot more dangerous. All right.
Yeah, it makes it dangerous and it makes it eerie, you know? I mean, the thing about a daytime storm is you see a lot. In a nighttime storm, you don't see it. It's usually just the aftermath. And it's going to take us a while because, as you pointed out, I mean, the storm is going to finally be pushed through in the darkness. So to get a real assessment by the county officials, by the state officials, and the federal officials, that will take some time because without daylight, it's extremely dangerous to be out on the road. There are going to be down power lines if there aren't already. The power lines could be live. There's no reason to be out driving in that where there might be a power line, and the next thing you know, there's a fatality, and we have seen that before. So the desire for people to want to know, so how bad is the damage? It will take a while to get that assessment simply because it'll be dark.
All right, Kerry Sanders, we're going to give you a chance to reset here there in Punta Gorda Forest, Florida, as Ian gets closer to where he is. Kerry, thank you.
Much more NBC News Daily. Right after this, we're going to be back with our special coverage right here on NBC after a short break.
The indictment of a former president, or perhaps candidate for president, would arguably tear the country apart. Is that your concern? Can you update us on the status of negotiations? Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Ukraine and Russia. Could you help me understand what's going on?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
To cover the news, you have to be in it. This is how so many towns and cities are protecting themselves. They're pushing the gates open. Was there a school officer on campus? That's what we've been told.
No. Top Story with Tom Yamas. Weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
Hey, podcast fans, ready to unlock our true crime mysteries? Try Dateline Premium on Apple Podcasts. You'll get early access to originals, plus bonus content, and everything is ad-free. So head to Apple Podcasts now to subscribe.
These days, it feels like the news never stops. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. It can be hard to keep up, so let's get started together.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
And what do you love about fatherhood?
The chaos, the learning. Is climate change one of your top priorities?
What's your message to girls who want to make a difference in their own communities?
Believe in yourself.
The indictment of a former president, or perhaps candidate for president, would arguably tear the country apart. Is that your concern? Can you update us on the status of negotiations? Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand, so we've created a newscast just for them. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition. As we look out over the latest city-turned-crime scene, we see the things left behind. Can you tell us what it was like? Our NBC News exclusive.
Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Kate Snow.
And I'm Aaron Gilchrist. This is our special coverage of Hurricane Ian as it blows across Florida's southwest coast.
Technically has not made landfall yet, but don't tell that to the folks that are in it right now. This is a violent storm. It is pounding the region. We're seeing some astonishing images. Just a few minutes ago, that stop sign was still wavering. Now it's on the ground. That is in Punta Gorda. We're seeing more than 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts there.
At the same time, the water is what really is so terrifying about this whole situation. You take a look at the storm surge that we've been seeing coming inland for the last few hours in places like downtown Naples. You can see some of the video there. Ali Velshi saying earlier they think there's an 8-foot storm surge already coming into that area before this storm makes landfall, washing away cars, taking out trees and such in that area. Just an incredibly frightening situation.
Let's go to Fort Myers Mayor Kevin Anderson if we have him. I know there are serious concerns there right now. There's already water coming in. Mr. Mayor, thanks for being with us. Do you have any sense for whether, I mean, we're seeing these pictures out of Naples just to your south that look like cars are underwater. What's happening in Fort Myers?
So far on the barrier islands and the beach, we're seeing the same type of flooding. I am here in downtown Fort Myers, about 2 blocks away from the Caloosahatchee River. So far, there's no flooding. A lot of heavy winds. Can see some debris flying. The rain has not been very heavy, but the winds have been very strong. We are concerned that when this does push upriver, that we will see that storm surge and possibly the flooding.
So, Mr. Mayor, based on that concern, what have you been able to do to be prepared for that if it does, in fact, come to bear?
There's really nothing you can do to prepare for it other than your recovery, your response and recovery. We have our emergency management teams on standby, ready to hit the streets as soon as it's safe.
We're looking at shots, I don't know if you can see it, Mr. Mayor, but we're looking at an overhead shot of Fort Myers that is shaking in the wind. It looks incredibly windy there right now. And you say barrier islands, you have heard reports of flooding. Would that be Captiva? What are we talking about?
Pine Island, Captiva, Sanibel.
Okay.
Estero Island.
And is anyone there? I think I might have heard you say earlier today that there were still people. Do you know if it fully evacuated?
I doubt if it's fully evacuated. I believe Sanibel had a pretty good percentage of their residents do so.
It's like we're going for the top.
Shelters have a lot of activity.
Top side,
And so at this
or
point, for folks who
369.
didn't evacuate, your best advice is what?
You have to stay put. It is not safe to get out there whatsoever.
All right, Mr. Mayor, appreciate it very much. Thanks for being with us. We'll check back in with him a little bit later. Down in the lower left part of your screen, that's video from earlier that I saw coming in from Naples. It looks like a power line down. We're not sure exactly what it is, but it looked like a power line had fallen, which is a real risk in storms like this.
Right, and we know that a couple 100,000 people have already lost power in different parts of Florida now as the storm has been coming ashore. We've seen, obviously, the flooding. We see when power lines come down, often there are fires that are started, and we've been told by the emergency responders that this is just going to burn. They're not going to be able to go out to put out fires. They can't get the fire trucks onto the street. And so that sort of emphasizes the danger that exists for anybody who wasn't able to evacuate.
That's right. We're going to take a quick break right now. We'll have much more on hurricane coverage right after this.
Well,
No more puts on Spy. Looks good.
Blowing around as the wind is picking up there. It's a very, very strong hurricane right now.
Higher lows. Breaking through smoothly.
Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg about the ongoing delays.
No change in
Speed.
speed.
They're pointing the finger back. Mr. Secretary, when is this going to get better?
News is happening now.
If this ends up being higher than
On Morning News Now.
We're coming on the air with breaking news.
this much volume around
This
here.
is a significant moment.
Whenever it happens, wherever you are, NBC News, streaming free now.
Top story with Tom
Then
Yamas
we
is
could
your news
see a
playlist on
positive,
NBC News Now.
bullish
You can listen to it as a
trace
podcast.
back.
Available anytime and anywhere.
News is happening now. Look at what's making headlines around the world. Whenever it happens, wherever you are, it's here now.
As we look out over the latest city turned crime scene, we see the things left behind. Can you tell us what it was like? Our NBC News exclusive.
Top story with Tom Yamas. Weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
I love mornings. They're full of possibility. And how you start your day sets the tone for the whole day. We feel like we're right there with you.
Just ahead in this half hour, we're going to introduce you to...
Because every day we start our morning so you can take on yours.
News is happening now. Look at what's making headlines around the world.
We're coming on the air with breaking news.
This is a significant moment.
Whenever it happens, wherever you are, NBC News, streaming free now.
Internal Affairs, the new podcast from Dateline. Listen now.
We're back with our special coverage of Hurricane Ian as it comes ashore as a Category 4 hurricane. Teresa Heitman is the Naples, Florida mayor, where we have seen those dramatic videos coming in of flooding in the streets. Mayor Heitman, we've been showing video also of a small fire in one area of your city. It looks like maybe it was caused by power lines down. Can you give us a sense for what you're hearing and seeing?
Yes, I'm on the second floor of City Hall, and behind me is Fire Station 1. And that's one of our battalion chief's trucks. The flooding is just coming faster and faster. And we're just hoping that we'll get through this surge and high tide, hopefully in the next hour, so the water can recede. And then we, of course, will go into efforts of checking on our residents and visitors, and also, the cleanup from this devastation.
We've been looking at some video of some of the flooding there from maybe half an hour ago. We can see dumpsters floating in some of the parking lots there. Have you been able at all to assess just how much water, how much of a surge has come into different parts of Naples at this point?
That was about an hour ago, right outside of City Hall in front of Cambier Park. And I'm thinking right now it's at 8 feet.
8 feet.
Right
Are you next to a window, Madam Mayor?
I am. I'm sitting on the second floor of City Hall.
Can you possibly turn
down.
your phone and show us what you're seeing out that window? Okay. That's the parking lot with cars. It looks like submerged up to the top of the tires, at least.
Oh, yes.
So, I see the flashing lights on that. It looks like a fire vehicle there. Do you have someone in that vehicle? Are you able to?
Oh, no. Oh, no. No.
And so you're not. Your responders are not able to go out at this point. This is everybody hunker down wherever you are and try to wait this out.
That's correct. I actually saw a firefighter out on a paddle boat, and we're waiting for some skiffs from the county so that. Unfortunately, people are still trying to enter the city, and we're trying to prevent that. We'll have a curfew just because people don't seem to think that this is a serious situation. It's severe, and they need to take it seriously and wait till the water recedes and we can clean up any debris and any live wires for the public safety point of view and for our first responders. Please wait till we have an all clear and then come back into the city, which we'll let that community know.
You say you'll have a curfew. What time will that be tonight in Naples?
Right now, the city manager, Mr. Boudouchoir, will be establishing that. Unfortunately, I came to have this interview with you.
Okay, well, we'll check back on that. But can I ask one general question? Because I don't know that our audience nationwide knows Naples that well. I've been there. It's a beautiful city. It's fairly low, right? You're not very high above sea level on a good day, if I'm right.
Correct.
So how much of the city is at risk of this flooding?
Well, the city manager and I were driving around town at 11 o'clock, and there was a break from the ocean, from the beach, water flowing directly into the streets and meeting the bay. So it's severe. It's highest I've ever seen living in Florida all my life. And growing up in Tampa, my thoughts and prayers are with those in Tampa and obviously our citizens here.
We know that this storm has sort of wobbled a little bit and maybe changed course just a bit as it's come toward Florida. Are you getting what you were expecting in that area, and how bad do you expect it's going to be when this is all said and done for Naples?
Well, yes, we actually thought it would be 5 feet. Unfortunately, it came at the perfect time when high tide was in the city. So that storm surge and the high tide has created more devastation than we thought.
Worst case scenario. Mayor Teresa Heitman, thanks for spending a couple of minutes with us from Naples. Appreciate it.
We're going to have much more coverage of Hurricane Ian after a short break. Stay with us.
Hallie Jackson Now. Weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
I think when you open your eyes, you get to decide, how's my day going to be? We want to be a way to start your day, lighten your load, every single morning.
Hey, podcast fans, ready to unlock our true crime mysteries? Try Dateline Premium on Apple Podcasts. You'll get early access to originals, plus bonus content, and everything is ad-free. So head to Apple Podcasts now to subscribe.
Right now on NBC News Now.
As we come on the air, here's what we know.
It has been dramatic, powerful.
We begin with breaking news just coming in.
What's happening now, what's happening next, and what it means for you.
We're continuing to follow the Russian attack on Ukraine.
There's an intense artillery battle underway.
We're getting out of this area right now because more air raid sirens are sounding.
As we look out over the latest city-turned-crime scene, we see the things left behind.
Was there a school officer on campus? Because that's what we've been told.
No, fewer people are content to just offer their thoughts and prayers.
And the House has answered the call to create new gun laws.
The stunning testimony at the January 6th hearing on Capitol Hill.
Americans face the highest inflation rate in decades.
Parts of Virginia cleaning up after severe storms.
A terrifying night of flash floods.
Flames forcing thousands to evacuate.
When do I play meteorologist? Only when the heat is this bad.
Another special night of election coverage right here at NBC News Now.
Results are coming in.
This Tuesday is going to be huge for primary purposes.
It's an interesting race here. I've just never covered anything like it. This is big. When we're talking about November,
How many doors do you think you've each knocked on?
This feels like an ideological fight to the death. Is there room for common ground on this issue?
What do you think when you see the activism that's happening right now? Do you think this movement could have happened without social media?
A lot to talk about as we continue our rolling coverage.
We're coming on the air with the news NBC Scoop.
Bringing the news to you is not only a job, it's an honor.
Hallie Jackson Now. Weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now. Top Story with Tom Llamas. Weeknights at 7